Welcome into Timeskew YouTube. We are getting ready for another Sunday of NFL football here. Week 10. We are the first double-digit week of the season here. Some teams playing their 10th game, some teams just playing their 9th game, and it's going to be an exciting time. It's going to be like we kind of said last week. This kind of now going down the stretch of your fantasy football season. These games are really crucial kind of heading into the playoffs. In fantasy football, it's not really like the NFL where I don't think there's many teams that are kind of clinched their playoff spot right now. We're really looking just coming down the stretch. I know I'm in a lot of my leagues. I'm definitely not in the lead, and so these weeks are really crucial to get me coming back. I know there's one league that I'm in, the league of record that me and Q are a part of, where I'm right now. Well, I was 1-5. I've worked my way up to 4-5 now, and so I'm still looking to get over that top because, now I have a little bit of hope. I have a little bit of hope coming back. And how are you doing this week, Towns?
I'm doing good. I appreciate being back. It's another Sunday. It's another interesting Sunday. And as we talked about a little bit before pregame, well, first, I agree with you full-heartedly that I'm not really in the top of any league at this point right now either. So these are crucial for me. I feel like a lot of fantasy leagues this year are a lot more balanced. Like I'm in a couple leagues where everyone's anywhere from like 4-5 to 5-4. It's wild, but I don't know. I'm excited to see how Justin Herbert and Tua do facing off against each other, and seeing how your Chargers come up with a way to win somehow this time. So we'll see if that happens, and hopefully it's a little bit more moderate questions this week. Last week was all these Bucks questions, and these suckers scored 3 points. So maybe get a little more offense involvement in your lineups today.
Okay. It's like we have Ben Simmons coming and saying, "Hey man, I'm 2-7. Is there even a point at?" There's always a point of asking questions. Okay, you say you're in a 16 league with fifth being 3-6 and 4-5. Listen, you're in a better position than I am because I'm not in the six. I'm in a 16 team league, and I'm 2-7. I'm in a 16 team with a bunch of my cousins and uncles and just people in my family, and I'm 2-7. I think there's only one person behind me in that league, and they're 0-9. And I'm still trying. I'm still asking questions. Who should I start? I'm hoping that I can get it back, and hopefully in a 16 league. I don't know how big your playoffs are going to be, but hopefully you can come back. If it's only, I'm guessing 16. I'm guessing it's maybe like only a 4-man playoff. So the guys in front of you are 3-6 and 4-5. You just need to win twice and have both of them lose twice.
Yep, I agree there. I mean, you never want to be that guy, even if you are out of it in your opinion, which you're clearly not in your league, but you never want to be that guy that just rolls over in a fantasy football league either and has, these other guys coming at you. So make sure you keep setting your lineup, make sure you keep activating, ask those questions. You want to do the best you can any week. And I'm in a few points that reward weekly high point winners. There is a pot payout every week if you do score the highest points that week. So those are kind of cool incentives to keep you activating as well if you have something like that.
Yeah, that's always nice. I'm not sure if it is a pay a buy-in league, but I know I have kind of the same thing where at the end of the season, people who had the high scores on a week will get some of their money back. First question of the day, Ty Wilson asks, pick one, Jacoby Myers, Wayne Gallman, DJ Dallas, J.K. Dobbins, or Kalen Ballage. I do think it's Ballage season, but I think out of these guys, Wayne Gallman's probably the best pick that you can go after. Devonte Freeman is out, so he's not going to have to think about him behind his back. And the Giants are going up against the Eagles defense. Eagles defense, their front line, their defensive line is pretty stout, but everyone else is kind of attackable. So he might have some trouble getting through that front line, but if he does, I think he can break off some big gains. And also he's shown he's valuable in the passing game, so you might not even have to worry about that defensive line when they're throwing it to him.
Yeah, definitely. This one's a little bit. You could tell it's a depleted list. You could tell these are guys that have been added off the waiver wires of late, which is great. I'm in 8 leagues. I have Balaj in a couple leagues, and I have him starting a league, and I have Wayne Gallman starting in a few leagues as well. So I think that those two separate themselves from the rest of the list. Especially, you never know what Ravens running back will contribute out of that group. Between Gallman and Balaj, I'd give the slight edge to Gallman, especially because he's proved a couple weeks now that he is worthy. I do like Balaj this week too, but you never know. Say if Anthony Lynn said the Chargers might take the hot hand approach, Kelly might get hot or whatnot, and Balaj may fade. So I'd lean with Wayne Gallman, but I do like Balaj too this week.
Yeah. And I'm just not sure about their confidence in Balaj since he was sent down to the practice squad at the end of last week, was brought back up after Justin Jackson was put on IR. So that's something a little worrying. ISO only comes in with his first question being start 3, full PPR, Brandon Cooks, DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson, or Brandon Ayuk. He says, thought Ayuk was a lock, but I don't know now. I say that Ayuk is a lock. I just traded for him. I was lucky in a trade earlier this week to trade just Kenyon Drake for Brandon Ayuk. Really happy about that, and he's already my number 2 on my roster that I have him in there. I also have Brandon Cooks in there, and so I would say Cooks and Ayuk are locks for me, and I think probably Deontay Johnson. I've been burned so many times by DJ Moore this season that they're just not using him. It's not like he's a bad receiver who's been getting open. They just haven't been using him. And also going up against the Buccaneers defense, they're probably just mad about losing as badly as they did to the Saints last week. And so I feel like they're going to come out full forces, and DJ Moore is going to get 3 points again.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I have DJ Moore in a couple of leagues myself, and he has not paid dividends to this point, so I'd probably find him as the odd man out. You have to start Ayuk. I like that trade for you, Pride. Ayuk is a rookie who's had back-to-back tremendous weeks, bringing in 115 and then 91 yards with a touchdown over those 2 games and at least 6 grabs in each of those games. And then Deontay Johnson's been pretty reliable for Pittsburgh, Mr. Jack Mullins' team so far this year. Brandon Cooks is pretty up on the most part. I feel like we talk about him week to week as a guy that is a bench guy who's always in a flex position, but whenever Brandon Cooks plays, he seems to get a touchdown or a good amount of grabs. So I'd find DJ Moore on the bench this week. I like your reasoning of these Buccaneers defenders being a little more pissed off as well. I just don't think you could start DJ Moore over any of those guys.
Yeah, and honestly, even if they give up a week like they did last week to the Saints, I feel like it'd just be to Robbie Anderson and Curtis Samuel because, I don't know, Matt Rule just doesn't like DJ Moore, I guess. I also said that he's missing Kenny and Julio this week, so I'm hurting. Dude, if this is your wide receiver situation, I'm jealous because, I'm not hurting. This league that I'm looking at right now, I'm not hurting at all. And Brandon Cooks and Brandon Ayuk are my number 1 wide receivers. I have no one on my bench who's injured at all. Those are just my 2 best wide receivers. So I'm a little jealous of that.
Yeah, when he heals up, he's going to have a hell of a wide receiver core.
Ben Simmons comes in with another question. This will be my last question that involves AB. Pick 2, Antonio Brown, Brandon Cooks, Mike Evans, Mark Andrews, Devontae Parker, Darrell Henderson, Christian Kirk. I know it's weird. Oh my gosh, only 2?
How is that weird? I mean, you just have a decently deep roster, I guess.
This is a little tough for me. Obviously, I really like Brandon Cooks after the first couple of weeks. Mike Evans also has been one of the top fantasy wide receivers, though he has been very touchdown dependent recently. Darrell Henderson, I think the Rams are going up against the Seahawks, so he's got a great matchup there against their rushing defense, and Christian Kirk has been on fire recently.
Man, I'm just going to step in quick and hit this one home. I normally lead with starting running back, so I will, even though, Seattle's a little bit of a tough go. I'm going to lean with Darrell Henderson here because when he does get a big workload, he does prove that he could pay big dividends this year. So I'm going with Henderson, and I'm going with Mike Evans. I think Mike Evans, his week in the media, a lot of people have brought up, what's wrong with Mike Evans? What's going on with Tom Brady to Mike Evans? Oh, my God, Mike Evans. Guys, relax. Mike Evans is fine. I know his numbers may be down a little bit, but that's to no fault of his own. Look for him to get a touchdown or two this week, and make sure you fantasy owners sleep good tonight.
Man, pulling out the Aaron Rodgers, RELAX.
Yeah.
It does say it's a full PPR league, so I think I'm going to go with Mike Evans as well and Christian Kirk, just because this hot streak has been amazing for Christian Kirk, and the Cardinals this week are going up against the Buffalo Bills. The Bills, right now, they've got Trey White as their best cornerback. Josh Norman is out. I'm not confident in their other two cornerbacks that they have on their roster, and so I imagine that White will kind of follow DeAndre Hopkins, and Christian Kirk will be left open for most of the game.
Yeah, and Josh Norman got COVID, I believe, so hopefully he recovers soon and he can find his way back.
Yeah, hopefully he can find his way back. Ben Simmons says that he's kind of in this situation because he's starting Evan Ingram over Mark Andrews. Usually I would say that's a bad play, but I mean, Mark Andrews has been very inconsistent, and Ingram is coming off of a hot game, so he might be able to continue that. And
yeah, Evan Ingram's been pretty decent last game, and against the Bucks, he showed some life too. So I think the second half this season is Evan Ingram's season. I think Mark Andrews, I don't know what their deal is. If anything, tonight might be a tough matchup against the New England team where Bill Belichick's been facing a ton of scrutiny himself this week in the media. You rarely hear Bill Belichick make those type of comments he made this week, pretty much saying that this year was a throwaway year based on their past success and financial reasoning. So I think that he comes to play tonight. I think they lock down Mark Andrews. I think Ingram is a good play over him.
Yeah, I really thought Evan Ingram's season was over after that drop on their Thursday night game against the Eagles, but he's had a little comeback. Next question coming in from Oscar Saka. Good morning. Good morning to you. Full PPR, Antonio Brown, Adam Thielen, or Jalen Reagor, and Jordan Reid or Mark Andrews. Thank you. I mean, I feel like you got to go Thielen. I mean, yeah. He's one of the best so far this season. If you had to pick two out of those guys, I think you'd go Thielen, and just because of their wide receiver situation, I might go Reagor as the number 2 wide receiver option there. Just because, I mean, last week, it didn't really tell me too much about how Antonio Brown would do if since we didn't see this offense at its full capacity. And so I think you go with Reagor just because of the upside, and Travis Fulgham is really the only consistent receiver that they have in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think that for the wide receiver part of the question, Adam Thielen's kind of a no-brainer. And if you did need a number 2, I'd go Reagor as well, just because you're not quite sure what Antonio Brown can do yet after taking over a year off of football. He did have 3 nice catches last game. He went up and got one of them, but it's not enough to prove him to start over Adam Thielen. And the tight end question to me isn't really too big of a question either. Jordan Reid has not done much in San Fran with anyone other than Jimmy Garoppolo. So I'm going with Mark Andrews, although I kind of just nagged on Andrews a little bit. I don't think Jordan Reid's a legit tight end option in fantasy, at least for right now.
Yeah, he had a great week very early on in the season, like the week after George Kittle got hurt, but hasn't really been relevant since. Could be because Jimmy G is out now, but also because they have been splitting time with him and Ross Dwelly. So if you're not getting the time, it's going to be really hard for a tight end of all players to kind of make up for that. Our next question coming in from Michael. Start 2 in PPR, Philip Lindsay, Travis Homer, or Cordero Patterson. I think the must start here is Philip Lindsay. He hasn't always been utilized, but when he's on his game. As for the other guys, though,
The Bears' backfield is really interesting this week without David Montgomery.
Yeah. I might lean towards Cordero Patterson just because of that, because Travis Homer didn't really do much last week. Obviously, it still looks like DJ Dallas is kind of their lead back, if you can even call him that, in Seattle. So I think I might lean Cordero Patterson just because he has been kind of used as more of an offensive weapon recently. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you here in the fact that Philip Lindsay is kind of the more obvious one because he's the type who could have a big game any week. He's had 23 carries for 101, 9 carries for 80, 6 carries for 83, and a touchdown, just to name a few of his stat lines this year. So that just goes to show no matter who's in the Broncos backfield, Philip Lindsay is capable of having a good game, although a little concerning. He only has 2 receptions this year. So in a PPR league that isn't as appealing as in a normal league with those 2 receptions. Travis Homer had 3 catches for 64 yards last week. So he was kind of living on the edge. Cordero Patterson should get a little bit of uptick without David Montgomery on Monday night for sure. This is a tough one. In a standard league, I'd say Philip Lindsay with ease. But since it's a PPR league, I'm going to go with Cordero Patterson. And I still like Lindsay as a number 2. I find Travis Homer, like Pride said, as the odd man out here.
Yeah. Next question here from Manuel Gomez. DJ Moore or Jacoby Myers?
I'm going with the guy with Kobe in his name. I'm going with Jacoby Myers. And you've seen Cam Newton look Jacoby's way a little more week in and week out the past 3 weeks. Where DJ Moore, me and Pride said it earlier, he just hasn't really done much this year, and it looks like he might be on the way out in Carolina in favor. So let me just real quick, Jacoby Myers, the past 3 weeks, he had 4 grabs for 60 yards and a rush for 2 yards in week 7. In week 8, he had 6 for 60, and in week 9, he had 12 for 169. So he's really just ready to go here, and I do think that Jacoby Myers has a decent game tonight compared to DJ Moore playing today against the Bucs. I don't see his path being as great.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to agree with you there, especially because, I mean, you look at Jacoby Myers' targets over the past 2 weeks, 10 targets in week 8, and then last week he had 14 targets. The ball's being thrown his way, which is more than you can say about DJ Moore. So, yeah, I think Jacoby Myers is your guy to go with. Still hasn't scored a touchdown, I believe, but I feel like that might change.
Not many have on that offense, sadly.
I mean, you are right. You are right. Next question coming in from Trey S. Morning, fellas. Just one question this week, but it's a big one. Full PPR. Choose 2. Swift, Fournette, Landry, Jerry Jeudy, DJ Moore, Melvin Gordon, or Marvin Jones.
It is a big one. You weren't lying, Trey.
Let me look at some matchups first here. Let's see. Lions going up against Washington, and so Swift and Marvin Jones do have a tough front line, but Marvin Jones could take advantage of that secondary who, despite having some names on it, has been looking pretty sus. Other than that, though, I think Jarvis Landry is going to be my number 1 out of that pack that you can start going up against the Houston Texans. Houston Texans, their offense has gotten better, has looked pretty decent for most of the season. Their defense, though, continues to be holding them back. And with Jarvis Landry being the number 1 guy and kind of taking over a bigger part of the role since Odell Beckham Jr.'s injury, I have confidence in him putting up some good stats. As for the number 2, I'm kind of going back and forth between Marvin Jones and Jerry Jeudy. Do you have an opinion on either of those guys, Tones?
Over those guys with Galladay out this week, although it seems appealing to go with Marvin Jones, I think Jerry Jeudy is going to have a second half rookie surge, and we've seen that kind of starting last week against Atlanta when he had 7 for 125 and a touchdown, and the week before he had 4 for 73. I know that Marvin Jones has been producing more this season as the season goes on without Kenny Galladay, but at the same time, I do like Jerry Jeudy as a rookie. I think rookies get going more in the second half of the season for sure in fantasy.
Yeah, I think in the end I would lean towards Jerry Jeudy as well, going up against the Raiders defense. Raiders, I don't know how, because their offense has not really inspired me, but it's been good enough to make up for their defense. Their defense has been getting better as the season's gone along, but they're still a very attackable defense to go up against. So I think Jerry Jeudy is the better half to go with. Even with Melvin Gordon there, Melvin Gordon I feel like can get some more yards on the ground, but I feel like the Broncos will have to be coming back a little bit against this Raiders team, and so I think they'll be relying on Jerry Jeudy more.
Yeah, if I could go 2 out of the group, I'm going with Jerry Jeudy for sure. And then honestly, I'm going with DeAndre Swift over Landry only because I keep saying I'm always a big fan of running backs who seem to get the majority of the load. Although Detroit gave Kerryon Johnson a little bit more work last week, I think they try and ease DeAndre Swift a little more into the game plan again this week. And the one thing that's unappealing to me with Jarvis Landry, although I would say any other week start him for sure, the winds in Cleveland today, I heard it's like 60-mile-per-hour winds. So that'll be interesting to see how Baker Mayfield, who really can't throw a football without wind, could throw in 60-mile-an-hour winds. Maybe Baker gets better with this wind. Maybe he could find a deep ball. Maybe the wind could carry the ball deep for Baker Mayfield and find him some success. I think it's an interesting one. Again, I just don't like DJ Moore in any league, and Pride was pretty much head on with Melvin Gordon. But me, I'd say Swift and Jerry Jeudy, although I don't mind Leonard Fournette today either.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I did get an update about that earlier, saying that there's a high wind warning from basically the start of the game until like 11 p.m. in Cleveland. So that is going to be tough, especially because we know. But I don't know. I think I'll still believe in him just because the Browns seems to be those teams where they have a terrible week and then next week they'll make up for it. I mean, they had a terrible week last time out playing the Raiders, got a bye, kind of were able to go over some stuff and now get to go out and face a equally bad defense in the Texans. I'm still going to believe that.
Yeah, he could still pop off for sure, especially without Odell Beckham for the year. I think that Baker Mayfield would be wise if he could get Jarvis Landry the ball. I mean, if they're serious about making a playoff run, Baker's going to need Jarvis Landry for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely going to need Jarvis Landry and a little more consistency from himself. Thank you all for enjoying the stream so far. We have another question coming in from Bobby Schmerda.
Bobby Schmerda, he's out of jail, huh?
Yeah, he's out of jail, I guess. Start Fulgham, Rager, or Jefferson PPR.
This is hard. The thing is, I like Fulgham a lot, but Rager's back now. Jefferson has had either boom or bust games. I don't know if a lot of you guys remember like Santana Moss used to be. I feel like that's how Jefferson's fantasy production has been to this point. 1 week he goes crazy. 1 week he goes off or doesn't go off. I mean, here's some of his games this year where he's went off. Jefferson in week 3 had 7 for 175 and a touchdown. Week 4 he had 4 for 103. Week 6, he had 9 for 166 and 2 touchdowns. But then he's had a couple games where he hasn't even hit 30 receiving yards. So he's really boom or bust. I think that Fulgham's the most reliable option here. I think Fulgham's floor will be the highest. He's just been the most consistent this year overall. Is Rager is kind of more of their deep threat. So if you're looking for a safety play, if you're looking for a guy who you know will get you safe production, I would go Fulgham. But if you're looking to hit that home run, if you're looking to say, you know what, I'm feeling risky this week, go with Jefferson.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you there. I think Travis Fulgham is probably the safer option to go to. Despite Jalen Rager and Alshon Jeffrey coming back, he's still looking to be the number one wide receiver on that Eagles roster just because he's been really good so far with them. So I think, Travis Fulgham's the safe option. Justin Jefferson, if you really need a really boom play this week, if you're going up against someone who's just got kind of a stacked roster and you just need someone who can really go off for you, I think Justin Jefferson would be the better choice. I mean, I try and look at patterns here, and I see Justin Jefferson. He's started 6 games so far this season. 3 of those games he's had over 100 yards. So since he's half and half, I'm not sure which way we'll be leaning this week. Could really pay off big for you, but also could very well come back to bite you in the butt. So Fulgham probably the safest option to go to. Next question coming in from Jack Mullins. My favorite two-stream slide again. Thank you, Jack. I'm stuck in a 16-teamer. Same, bro. I need to fill an RB spot with either Booker or Akers.
And he even says that he places his faith in us.
I think, oh my gosh, this Booker did have a great week last week going up against the Chargers, but then again, that's the Chargers run defense. And Akers, like we said with Darrell Henderson, is going up against the Seahawks. I think I would lean more towards Cam Akers on this one. Devonte Booker, I believe, had 8 carries last week, but they totaled 68 yards. That is some great efficiency there. But the Broncos have a much tougher run defense than the Chargers do. So I think I would be more inclined to play Cam Akers in this situation.
Yeah, and with Cam Akers, we've seen his best game as a pro happen right before the bye week in Week 8 against Miami. He had 9 carries for 35, and he had 1 grab for 19 yards. So that by far has been his best game as a pro. Then they had a bye week, so maybe coming out of the bye week, they try and get their highly touted former Seminole back a little more involved in their backfield. Like a lot of people expected him to be coming into the year kind of their lead running back, and I agree with Pride. Booker's just tough because he always never gets a lot of carries. It's just if he has that one big run in the game, which he's capable of having. Against Denver, I don't see him having that big run on the ground. I'd lean Cam Akers here just based on the pattern of the Rams trying to get him involved before the bye week, hoping that today they really want to get him involved against the Seattle defense that has allowed a lot of pass yards this year. So maybe Cam Akers could bring in one in the air.
Yeah, I understand that. Back to Bobby Schmer's question. He said, even covered by James Bradbury. I know James Bradbury is a great cornerback, but honestly don't see him covering Fulgham the entire game. I feel like he's not going to completely shadow him since, even though Travis Fulgham's been their best wide receiver, I think bringing back Alshon Jeffrey and having Jalen Reagor for another week is going to cause them to kind of keep him on the outsides there. So I don't think that he's going to be shadowed completely.
I couldn't agree more with that. I think even though Alshon Jeffrey might not be the same old Alshon Jeffrey, just the fact alone that he's back and the fact alone that Dallas Goedert came back last time the Eagles played as well, that gives the Eagles and Rager's back too. So they just keep getting more options. So Fulgham shouldn't get the chunk of Bradbury's attention. As Pride said, he's been their best. But in terms of physicality on the field, they might like Bradbury's matchup a little more with either Alshon Jeffrey or if they're at the goal line, if Dallas Goedert spread out wide. So I think you're safe with Travis Fulgham.
Next question coming in from Jeremiah Hudson. Fulgham, Antonio Brown, Tyler Boyd, Robbie Anderson. Pick 2, please. Standard league. I do like myself some Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, Boyd, especially since he's knocked John Ross off the Bengals radar, he's really stepped up this year as well. I agree. I like Boyd and I like Fulgham. I'm going to keep it easy here. AB just hasn't, until AB proves himself to me, I don't really think he is a reliable option. And as Pride said, I think the Bucks are just hungry this week. I think they really try and make this a vengeance game against Carolina. So I think Robbie Anderson doesn't do anything too crazy this week, although he's had a pretty good year. He only has one touchdown, so that's a little concerning. I like Fulgham and I like Boyd this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go Tyler Boyd, but I think on this one, I think I'll say play Robbie Anderson. All of these guys have really been getting the targets recently. Obviously, each of them being kind of the number one wide receiver on their respective teams. Tyler Boyd has totaled 20 targets over the past 2 weeks. Robbie Anderson has totaled, I believe, quick maths, 21 targets over the past 2 weeks. I really just like those numbers, even though Robbie Anderson has had some troubles getting the yardage to go with those targets over the past 2 weeks. I think even against the Bucks, there's going to be one really good play from the Panthers, and I think it's going to be Robbie Anderson. And obviously Tyler Boyd going up against the Steelers, it's going to be tough. I mean, both Anderson and Boyd have tough matchups, but since they're the number one guys on their teams, I have confidence in them making up for it.
Yep, good analysis right there. I like your reasoning there. And just as everyone thought, but just to say, the Eagles have heard this for the first time this season, as these two come onto the field together for the first time. Alshon Jeffrey and Miles Sanders are officially active and playing for the first time together this year. Miles Sanders has played, but this is Jeffrey's first game back.
I know, thank goodness. There are a couple leagues that have been holding out for Miles Sanders to come back. Had to deal with 2 separate occasions of him being out, and now
I got a quick question for you quick. I'm a big Miles Sanders guy too. I have him in a league. I have him coming back. Between the running backs coming back this week, Nick Chubb or Miles Sanders, who do you like more?
I think of those two, I both like their matchups. Obviously, Chubb going against the Texans and Miles Sanders going up against the Giants. I think I'm going to stick with saying Miles Sanders is probably my favorite coming back there, just because Boston Scott is no Kareem Hunt. Miles Sanders coming back, he's not going to have to really deal with the guy taking away his passing targets, and I just like him better because, I mean, also the Browns have shown that without Nick Chubb, they can win games. They can become a high-scoring team just with the other weapons that they have, whereas the Eagles have kind of shown whereas the Eagles, they're so battered and bruised that it's really just the Miles Sanders show if he's out there, and if not, they're trying to get Travis Fulgham to lead them to the win.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd lean Sanders, and it's interesting to see these two running backs coming back. And then we have David Johnson, David Montgomery, Joe Mixon going on the shelf. So the running back cycle keeps shuffling in fantasy. It's crazy. It's hard to keep up with.
Yeah.
I do like Duke Johnson a lot this week, though. If anyone could go grab Duke Johnson off of waivers, I know at this point he's probably owned in a lot of leagues, but if you are fortunate enough to maybe try and find Duke Johnson on the waiver wire, especially in a PPR format, I think that Duke Johnson could pay guys looking for running backs dividends.
Yeah. Another question here coming in from Controversial. PPR pick 3, Mike Thomas, Will Fuller, Antonio Brown, John Brown, and Jarvis Landry. In this situation, I think Will Fuller and John Brown are the 2 guys that I'm definitely going to start. John Brown looks like he's fully healthy last week, was getting really involved with the offense. The offense looked great, and I think that his production will continue. Will Fuller, I think it's 6 consecutive weeks now that he's gotten a touchdown, something like that. He has looked far more consistent. than he has in past years, probably because he hasn't been injured. So that's really nice going Will Fuller's way. As for the other guys, one second, I need to jog my memory. Who are the Saints playing tonight? They're playing against the 49ers. 49ers, I think they're still missing their top two cornerbacks. I mean, obviously, Richard Sherman hasn't played at all this season. I think Akello Witherspoon is also out. No, he's not. But Jason Verrett, that could still be a tough matchup for Mike Thomas. But I think I'm still more comfortable with playing Mike Thomas than I am with Jarvis Landry or Antonio Brown. Still want to see what Antonio Brown looks like in this Bucs offense when it's clicking, and also, like we've said before, going to Cleveland could be a great day for Jarvis Landry, but the winds could cause it to be not so great. So I think Mike Thomas, Will Fuller, and John Brown are the guys I'm going with.
Yeah, I think that Mike Thomas and Will Fuller are pretty much locks here. Mike Thomas, anytime he plays, although this year in his 2 games he's played, both against Tampa Bay, he only has a total of 8 receptions for 68 yards, so it makes you wonder. But I think with Mike Thomas's career he's had, you have to start Mike Thomas. With the year Will Fuller's had, it would be hard to make a case to not start Will Fuller, as he's just been amazing. He's been a touchdown machine. He's scored in every game besides the first 2, in fact. And then it is a tough question between Antonio Brown, John Brown, and Jarvis Landry. John Brown's a guy, when he plays, he's kind of boom or bust for Buffalo. He's a little deep ball dependent with his quarterback. It's interesting to see, although last week he had a nice little game of 8 for 99. I'm going with Mike Thomas, Will Fuller, and John Brown as well. With the wind howling in Cleveland, it's hard to trust Landry. And then Antonio Brown, we just haven't seen enough of him to trust yet as well.
Yeah. Looks like he also needs some help with his tight end PPR, Kyle Rudolph or Jordan Reid.
Who's on the waivers here?
Yeah, really, who's on the waivers? Because, I mean, we've seen Ross Dwelley really taken a bite out of Jordan Reed's production. Ross Dwelley actually, I think he's had more fantasy points last week than Jordan Reed did. And Kyle Rudolph really being usurped right now by Irv Smith on his own roster. If I had to take a choice out of these guys, I would say Jordan Reed, because Irv Smith's really just been taking all the touchdowns away from Kyle Rudolph. So I would say Jordan Reed has your best shot out of those guys, but also look on your waivers, see if you can pick someone up there, someone who's the definite starting tight end, because just someone who's a definite starting tight end who has a better chance of getting a touchdown.
Yeah, I would even, even with Irv Smith, I think he's questionable with the groin. Even if he doesn't end up going, Kyle Rudolph's against a really hard defense, and Kyle Rudolph's only owned in 3.4% of ESPN fantasy football leagues, so I think that should be telling amongst itself. And then Jordan Reed, I talked a little down about him earlier. He's not awful, but his pride said I would almost add any other starting tight end out there before I trust starting these 2 guys. Go look at the waivers, see who you could get. But if I had to go with these guys, I'd go with Jordan Reed, regardless if Irv Smith with his groin injury plays or not. I don't think he is, but I'd still go Jordan Reed. As Jordan Reed, his ceiling is much higher than Kyle Rudolph.
Yeah, Kyle Rudolph, the most receiving yards Kyle Rudolph's had in a game so far this season is 47. Most receiving yards Jordan Reed has had was 50. Jordan Reed also had 2 touchdowns in that 50-yard game, whereas the only touchdown Kyle Rudolph's gotten this season came in, I think it was like 1 11-yard reception in one game.
Yeah.
So it's both not the best option. If you can find someone on the waivers, I would advise that. If not, I think Jordan Reed is the better option of the 2. Another question coming in from Jack Mullins. Which Dolphins running back, if you're forced to, would you plug in this week? I mean, Matt Breida right now is questionable, but sources say that he's going to be ruled out this week. And so I guess I would say Salvin Ahmed. Jordan Howard has been getting – I think Jordan Howard has the better chance of getting touchdowns. I think that he's going to be their goal line kind of guy. But Salvin Ahmed, I'm more comfortable with because he's going to get the yards. He's going to get carries. He's actually going to be efficient with his carries. He's not going to be like Jordan Howard, who gets like a yard and a half per carry. So I would go with Ahmed, but I'm sorry for anyone who has to start a Dolphins running back.
Yeah, I agree with that statement because you look at these running backs and you have Jordan Howard, who, as you said, he's very touchdown dependent based. He doesn't have over 1.9 yards per carry in any game this year, but he does have 4 touchdowns, I believe, so that's interesting. You look at Ahmed, he had 7 for 38 last week, so at least that showed a little promise. And then they do have rookie Lynn Bowden Jr., who still hasn't really done much. They have Laird, who we've seen hasn't really done much. And then they do have new running back DeAndre Washington, who might get some tick this week, but that backfield is ugly regardless. If I had to start one, I'm starting Jordan Howard and just hoping he finds his way into the end zone because I don't think any of them get 60. DeAndre Washington is, as I mentioned, he's new there. He could be a little more involved, but they haven't really gotten Lynn Bowden Jr. involved. I don't think they get Washington involved too much. So we'll see what happens. Washington was on the commissioner's exempt list before, but now he might be suiting up for week 10 today. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, he might be suiting up, but I still think Ahmed's the better choice there, which, I mean, I say better choice, but it's not. It's a better choice, but it's not a great choice. Next question coming from Travis Harrison. He actually has 2 questions here. Charks or Cooks? Or Charks or Cooks? He also says, I think I'm leaning towards Chark because of weather. Yeah, that I think also saw a gale warning for that game, so that is tough. Also, Chark was targeted a lot last week. I think he had 12 targets with Jake Luton as his quarterback, going up against a tougher defense than the Packers. But also keep in mind the top 2 cornerbacks for the Packers, Jaire Alexander and Kevin King, are out once again. So, I mean, it's tough to say, but Josh Jackson, despite being an Iowa guy, he's not been the best cornerback in the league. So I think that DJ Chark can definitely take advantage of going up against him. And I think who's their other cornerback? Chandon Sullivan. I've never even heard of him before. So honestly, yeah, I think I would lean towards Chark as well.
Yeah, I'd go DJ Chark for a number of reasons. And another reason is that the Jaguars could be playing behind a lot today at Green Bay. Green Bay could get off to an early lead and not look back. And it might force the Jaguars and their rookie quarterback to look to the passing game to keep him involved if they want to win. Although we ultimately know at this point the Jaguars are tanking perhaps, but DJ Chark is a pro's pro. He's a guy who doesn't want to tank. He has ultimate production when he does play. I'm going with Chark over Cooks. As we said, I could see the Texans kind of doing a lot more dinks and dunks or keeping the ball on the ground with those wins today.
Yeah, especially next question. It's Fragger asks Hawkinson or Fant, my boys. My two of my favorite tight ends in the league, Hawkinson and Fant, both Iowa guys. And I think out of those two, Hawkinson is probably the best option. Noah Fant, honestly, I think he's the best target that Drew Lock has, but he's just been very underwhelming so far this season. He was really good his first 2 weeks. He got a touchdown each of those weeks, along with some yards behind that, but after that, he's topped out at 47 yards. Hasn't had a touchdown. Has been getting a lot of targets, though. Just hasn't been able to make up a lot for it. So I think Hawkinson is kind of the guy to go with. He's been very consistent for the Lions, especially in the past couple of weeks. He's gotten a bunch of touchdowns. Has not always had the yards to kind of add to those touchdowns. But I think especially with Kenny Golladay out, he's been a big target for Matt Stafford to throw to, and I think he's going to continue to be.
Yeah, I this one's tough. Iowa produces great tight ends in this league, and Hawkinson and Fant were both first-round tight ends taken in the same draft. I love the story of both of these guys. I'm leaning Hawkinson over Font, although Font's probably the Broncos' number one target at this point. I think Hawkinson's volume and potential for bigger games is a lot higher than Font's is, just given the structure of that Broncos and Lions offenses. I'm going with TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe if Noah Fant had a better quarterback, he'd be better fantasy producer.
Yeah, a more consistent one to say the least, for sure.
Yeah. Next, coming in from Sleepy Refresh, what are your thoughts on Curtis Samuel? And I think that goes along with T. Higgins, Antonio Brown, or Justin Jefferson. I'm not sure if he's asking just what are our thoughts on Curtis Samuel and then that question. Curtis Samuel, I think he's an offensive weapon kind of guy. Out of these four guys with Curtis Samuel added to this mix, I think Justin Jefferson would be your better pick to go with. I think he has a higher ceiling than Curtis Samuel does. I think Curtis Samuel is also kind of will he or won't he week to week. And so I think Justin Jefferson is your higher pick. I think the safest option to go with out of these four, though, would be T. Higgins. But even then, I'm not too excited. I'd be more excited playing Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I think out of these four, we'll clump Curtis Samuel in, as Pride said. Curtis Samuel is pretty good, but I just don't trust the volume of share he's going to get in the offense. I'd go Justin Jefferson, given his big play potential. Higgins is green and Boyd to compete with targets with, amongst others, so he's always a little cluttered for targets. Antonio Brown, we're just not really quite sure what he's going to bring to the table yet, ultimately leading me to go with Justin Jefferson. And real quick here, Pride, we do have a Twitter question from Joe. Joe A asks, who should he start two of these four running backs between J.D. McKissic, Ronald Jones, Wayne Gallman, and Leonard Fournette? It is a PPR league. So he has McKissic, Rojo, Gallman, and Fournette, and that's Joe from Twitter. Thanks for asking, Joe. Who are you advising two of the four of McKissic, Rojo, Gallman, and Fournette?
I think my favorite to go with out of those guys are Wayne Gallman, so that'd be my number one. I like his potential against the Eagles this week. Other than that, I'm a little torn. I think I would lean more towards Rojo. Didn't see a full game with J.D. McKissic with Alex Smith as his quarterback, even though J.D. McKissic did have a lot of targets going his way after Alex Smith took over. I'm not sure how that will transition into this next game. I want to say that Antonio Gibson is going to start getting more of those targets. I hope he does. I really love Antonio Gibson. And so I'm hoping that'll happen. I think that will happen. And so I think I would lean more towards Gallman and Ronald Jones for that situation.
Yeah, I think that McKissic is a guy who's very target dependent, and they drafted Antonio Gibson to be kind of a pass catching threat out of that backfield, ultimately leading to Gibson getting more tick eventually. I agree there. I think Wayne Gallman is the best of the, like the most modest play, and not the best running back, but the best potential for points because the Giants offense struggles and Gallman seems to get the ball a lot. So I'd go with Gallman. And I think Ronald Jones out edges Fournette this week because I think Ronald Jones is able to find himself into the end zone, but it's tough because Fournette could get grabs. I'd agree with you, though. I'm going with Gallman and Ronald Jones here. It's Rojo's season still. He had a couple big games this year. Let's hope he could replicate that success. Gallman and Rojo.
Q would absolutely love that. Our next question comes from Alligator Feed 11. Watson or Wentz? I really do like Wentz's matchup against the Giants, which obviously means that I'm going to be wrong and he's going to throw 2 interceptions in this game. I think I would stick with Deshaun Watson in this game. I know we've been talking about the severe winds coming his way in Cleveland, but I still think that he's going to have a better game than Carson Wentz. This feels like a game that, we can see Carson Wentz become the Carson Wentz of yesteryear, and he's going to disappoint us again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, This is a tough one. I do like Carson Wentz's matchup, as you said, but at the same time, I think Watson is more of the, certified play based on ground ability. But it is a tough day to throw the ball in Cleveland. That is why I will say that I'm going to give the edge to Carson Wentz here. I just think I like Wentz's matchup against the Giants. He's getting Jeffrey back. He's getting Miles Sanders back. He's getting a little healthy. I'm rolling with Carson Wentz, although Watson, his floor is probably a little higher, but I think Wentz is going to have a big boom game here.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it, because if I said it, I would have been wrong.
Yep. That's hey, we could share that together. I'm wrong with some, so
Okay. Next up, we've got Mike Smith asking Antonio Brown, Jalen Reagor, or Marquis Brown. Pick one, full PPR.
You have the Brown cousins on your team.
And honestly, one sec, let me look at the Ravens matchup again. Ravens going up against the Patriots. I think I would be more inclined to play Marquise Brown in this game. He's a boomer bust kind of guy, and I think against this Patriots defense that this is kind of a game that he is set up to boom for. I think he might have a little trouble with Stephon Gilmore. I think, though, also at the same time, Stephon Gilmore is not going to shadow him the entire game. So I think he can find a couple plays where he's going to get some big yards, maybe even one touchdown call from 30 yards out.
Yeah, I like Marquise Brown this week as well. He's the clear top option for Lamar Jackson to go to, and not that he played more than 2 snaps last game, but Dez Bryant isn't playing this week as well, just making the targets even more limited for other options. I think Marquise Brown is better than Antonio Brown and Jalen Reagor, and I think he's more of a top option on his team than Antonio Brown or Jalen Reagor. So I'm going Marquise Brown. And real quick here, Pride, we have another one from Twitter from Joe again asking John Brown or Devonte Parker. It's a popular day for Brown wide receivers, Marquise Antonio, John Brown. So now we have John Brown or Devonte Parker in a PPR league. Who you going with?
I think I would go with Devonte Parker because of Preston Williams' injury last week. I think Devonte Parker is going to see a big uptick in his targets. He's already the number 1 wide receiver, but now with the number 2 kind of being out, I think the next guy they have up is Malcolm Perry, the number 2 wide receiver after Preston Williams. So yeah, the converted quarterback not looking to make too big of a difference. So I'm thinking Parker's going to see a big uptick, and I'm going to say at least double-digit targets in this game. And so I like him more than John Brown.
Yeah, a lot of the Dolphins, not to cut you off quick, but a lot of the Dolphins guys like Alan Hearns and whatnot opted out before the season too.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Albert Wilson and Alan Hearns both opting out. So yeah, it's already left them really slim in the wide receiver department. So yeah, Devontae Parker should be good. Next question coming in from Jay. He asked Will Fuller or Henderson Jr. on flex. He also added later Rojo to that list. And so Fuller, Henderson Jr., or Ronald Jones. He also says Fuller is facing the weather like we've been talking about in Cleveland. Not looking good, like a good day for the passing game. I think I would go with Henderson Jr. on this one. Talked about it a little earlier. They're going up against the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks looking to become the worst defense in the NFL history by over 1,000 yards. At least that's what it's projected to be like at the end of the season. So, I mean, you got to be confident anytime one of your players is going up against that Seahawks defense.
Yeah, I agree there. I'm going with Henderson only because, too, we're not sure how this game may go for Tampa, although a lot of people think they'll bounce back. You never know if that bounce back occurs with Fournette or Ronald Jones, and Will Fuller may have a hard time finding grabs with the wind. I'm going with Henderson as he faces that really, really bad defense. I think the Rams offense exploits them today for sure.
Yeah. Especially with, I think they're missing now their 2 top cornerbacks. So, I mean, it's not going to be too much, affect Henderson too much missing their top. couple cornerbacks, but it's just setting up for this defense. Just yeah, I mean, even though 1,000's a lot, like I think it's very possible.
Yeah.
Next question. Next question coming in from Tyler Olmeyer. Kirk or Deontay Johnson? I think we had kind of a similar question earlier with both these two in it. I'm going to stick with my answer from earlier. Christian Kirk, he's just been on a hot streak the last 3 games. Deontay Johnson, I don't know. I've never been too excited about the Steelers' offense so far this season. I mean, James Conner, I was expecting to be like a top 12 running back. He's been top 24, I think. Deontay Johnson, he's been injured a lot, and so probably could be better, but just injuries have kind of hindered him. And yeah, I'm just not really excited about playing Deontay Johnson. Much rather play Christian Kirk.
Yeah, Christian Kirk has 5 touchdowns in the past 3 games and 6 touchdowns in the past 5 games. So the role that Christian Kirk is on right now is honestly pretty incredible to see what he's been able to do. And that Arizona offense always seems to be exciting with Kyler Murray. So I think that you could sleep well playing Christian Kirk. Deontay Johnson is kind of boomer bust. We've seen him do a couple bad games and a couple really nice games this year. Christian Kirk, you got to ride the hot hand here, in my opinion. I'm agreeing with Pride. I'm rolling with Christian Kirk. And Pride, another one from Twitter, seems to be our last one from Twitter. Joe says he's in a 2-quarterback league, no negatives for interceptions. Who are you starting? 2 of these 3. Matt Stafford, Alex Smith, or Baker Mayfield. No negatives for anything. So I think, it's just positive points. You can't get negatives for turnovers.
Let's see, Matt Stafford, Alex Smith, and Baker Mayfield.
Yep, quite the trio.
Yeah. I mean, Matt Stafford is the guy I'm definitely going to start out of those guys. And then the number 2 for that 2 QB league, I think I would go with Alex Smith just because, I mean, the more and more I think about it, weather like that, it's just not looking good for points at all. And when you have a running back like Kareem Hunt in the backfield, I don't feel like the Browns will feel pressure to throw the ball that much. And so I think Alex Smith is going to be having a tough game against Matt Stafford and the Lions. So I think he's going to be forced to throw the ball more downfield. He's also got Terry McLaurin, the F1 Firejet. I think that's going to really help him out. Probably have a good day. Couple of minutes left in the podcast before we end it. Have a couple more questions left. Mike Smith once again asked Leonard Fournette or Antonio Gibson or Ryan Nall or Giovanni Bernard. Pick 2, full PPR. Ryan Nall, I mean, because it is full PPR, I was going to write out Ryan Nall right away. But since he is full PPR, I will consider him. But I think in the end, I'm going to go Antonio Gibson and Giovanni Bernard.
Yeah, I think you got to go Gibson and Bernard. They're the 2 clear-cut backs in this picture that will get the most touches or carries on their team. Although J.D. McKissick gets a lot of touches as well. I think that today Gibson breaks onto the scene. They want their rookie. Ryan Nall, you just can't trust, even though he could provide dividends in a PPR league with guys like Cordero, Patterson. You just don't know who's going to emerge. I'd go with Bernard and Gibson over the latter.
Okay. Next question from Jay Almighty. He says, I have Hopkins and Adams. Do I play Murray or Rodgers? Hopkins and Adams, those guys will give you a lot of points. And I think
he's looking for the better double bubble here.
Yeah. I think you're going to play Aaron Rodgers. Going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, he's got a great matchup. Obviously, the Jaguars, like we said, they're looking to get they're looking to challenge the Jets to get Trevor Lawrence there. So they're still trying. They're still trying to get Lawrence even after Minshew led them to that win first game of the season. But ultimately, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to put him down, whereas Kyler Murray going up against the Buffalo Bills, their defense is off and on. I really like AJ Klein's week last week. I think they're going to slightly contain Kyler Murray more in the pocket. And so, yeah, I think I'm going Rodgers in this one.
Yeah, I think I'm going Rodgers as well in this one, only because we've seen what Rodgers could do this year on a weekly basis. That's not taking anything away from Kyler Murray, but as Pride said, Kyler plays a very tough defense in Buffalo. I think Rodgers has more room to play with against Jacksonville. I'm going with, I'm going with the option of Aaron Rodgers over Kyler Murray in this one.
Yeah. Couple more questions left. Zonky Goose 707 asked Duke Johnson, Chris Godwin, Giovanni Bernard, or DeAndre Swift. Pick two.
Mm.
I think in this one, I think I'm gonna go with Giovanni Bernard. Again, he's looked decent filling in for Joe Mixon here, and also I think I'm gonna go with Duke Johnson. Like we've been saying, that weather in Cleveland not very helpful to the passing game. So I think Duke Johnson is going to see more volume in the rushing game. I know, like, weird. Duke Johnson actually running the ball, not receiving it. Crazy. But yeah, I think with David Johnson now, he's going to see a lot of carries coming his way. And yeah, against that off and on Cleveland Browns defense, I think he's going to have a great game.
Yeah, and it's his former team who didn't treat him too well. So look for Duke Johnson to come out fired up and kind of smack him around. Hopefully, I'm going with Duke Johnson, and then it gets a little tough. I think I would lean with Bernard, but Godwin and Swift are pretty good options to have as well at this point. I guess you just can't trust Chris Godwin completely yet, although he's my guy and I love him. I go with the running backs who get more of the workload. I'm going with Duke Johnson and Giovanni Bernard.
Okay, quick question right here. Agastia Palagarum. Should I use DJ Dallas? Depending on who you have a running back, I mean, that really depends. I think in general, maybe yes. He does have a touchdown in each of his 2 games starting, so that does kind of give me a little more confidence in him. I'm still really scared just because his first game was not really efficient in his carries. Last game he did do a little bit better against the Buffalo Bills. I think, yeah, use him if you got him. I mean, unless you have like a certified top 24 running back in front of him, I would say, yeah, you should use him. Next up, another question here from Mike Smith. Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, or Lamar Jackson? Who do I start? Who does he start, Tones?
Well, you know me. I've been a Herbert advocate this year, and although Josh Allen has been great and Lamar Jackson is Lamar Jackson, I'm going with Justin Herbert here because Josh Allen plays a tough game today against Arizona. I think Arizona plays Buffalo really tough today. I think Arizona's defense comes to play today. And then I think, as I said earlier, I think that Bill Belichick has his guys fired up this Sunday night and plays a close contest with Baltimore. I really do think it's a 1 or 2 possession game only. I'm going with Justin Herbert. No matter if his team wins or loses, he finds a way to play well. He's going up against Tua Tagovailoa today. I know I probably butchered the shit out of Tua T's name. It's hard, but I think Herbert's out for vengeance against Tua T today. After all, Tua T got drafted before Herbert, and now Herbert wants to make Miami regret that. I'm going with Justin Herbert today. Who would have thought I would say this before the year?
Yeah, especially compared to those 2 guys. Josh Allen, I do like his game, but I think I might have to agree. Justin Herbert, even though he's only won 1 game out of however many starts, 7 starts, he's always looked good in those games. Next question coming in from Olivia Scordado. Marvin Jones or Curtis Samuel? I think I would lean more towards Marvin Jones. I think that Detroit's really going to have a fun time playing Washington. I think it's going to be actually a really good game, really fun game to watch. I think Marvin Jones is going to be a big part of that game as well. Whereas Curtis Samuel, like I said earlier, I think Robbie Anderson is only going to be the only guy who you're really excited to start in this game for the Panthers, because I think he's going to get the targets, whereas Curtis Samuel, I think he's going to be really starved. He came off of a great game last time out. I think he had 9 receptions on 9 targets along with a touchdown, but I see him kind of regressing back to Curtis Samuel that we saw earlier against the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I like Marvin Jones in this one as well because Kenny Galladay's out, and this Washington football team gets exploited by the pass game sometimes. So I think Marvin Jones has a nice game. Curtis Samuel, to me, as Pride said, returns to his means here. I don't think he is too big of a week this week. I'd feel comfortable and safe rolling out Marvin Jones.
Yeah. Couple more questions here. Gabriel Miller, start Fulgham or Boyd at wide receiver 2, or Brandon Cooks. My wide receiver 1 is Robert Woods. Robert Woods should have a good game against Seahawks. So wide receiver 2, let's quickly answer this. I think I'm going to go Tyler Boyd in this one. I kind of talked about it earlier. Tyler Boyd, number 1 wide receiver on the Bengals. Yeah, really, I like you kind of said it earlier, really displaced John Ross. John Ross, I think, got injured playing cornerback in practice earlier this week. Just Bengals wide receiver room been so good that they forced one of their wide receivers to try out cornerback. So, yeah, I think Tyler Boyd, definite start over Fulgham. Could have a good game, but I'm just more confident in Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, this one's a tough one for sure as well. I'm going with Fulgham here too, although I like Tyler Boyd. Boyd's played pretty well the past couple weeks in particular. Robert Woods is a nice option to have. Cooks is cool too because he's been good, but in this windy day, I'm going with Fulgham. I like Fulgham to produce more than Cooks and Boyd.
Okay, 2 questions left. Then I'm going to cut off the stream. Nick Leo 07 asks, who should I put in my flex? Chase Claypool, Tyler Boyd, or Kareem Hunt? Ooh. I don't like Chase Claypool's potential in this game. Against who are the playing against the Bengals. William Jackson and that Bengals secondary has been kind of underrated so far this season. So I don't really like that game. But Tyler Boyd or Kareem Hunt, I might lean towards Kareem Hunt. I think he'll be used a lot in this Browns game, especially since I don't know how Baker Mayfield's going to come out playing this game. He could come out firing, or he could most likely just be Baker Mayfield and be very underwhelming and force the Browns to really run the ball a lot, especially with the win. So I think I'm leaning towards Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, I'm leaning Kareem Hunt as well. I think that with his success, it's hard to say no to Kareem Hunt. You know, I think you got to start him based on what he's done, especially I know Chubb's coming back today, but when the wind in that game, I think they like to keep the ball on the ground. I'm going with Kareem Hunt over the other two.
Okay. And final question that we'll answer in depth. I guess Pelagarum asked once again, should I start Fuller or Juju and Wilson or Lamar? I think in the first one, I think you're going to start Will Fuller. He's been hotter. Juju has been underwhelming so far this season. He's supposed to be the Steelers' number 1 wide receiver, but he just has not gotten the looks to be one. Whereas Fuller, even with the win, I have to believe he can push the streak to 7 games with a touchdown. I have to believe.
Yeah, I agree with that. The 7-game touchdown streak, Will Fuller. Yeah, I'm going with Fuller in that first half question as well.
Yeah, and as for the other one, let Russ cook. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, let Russ cook. I'm going with Russ. Yeah, you have to be crazy to not start Russell Wilson in fantasy at this point. I'm going with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, this could be a game that Lamar Jackson has one of his good games. I think this is an tactical defense, but I mean, you don't need to know which defense that Russell Wilson's going up against.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's really going to be it. There's one last question. I'll just answer it quickly. Sorry, I got a few questions. Judy, Antonio Brown, Chark, DJ Moore, pick 2. Next question. I'll just answer that one quickly. DJ Chark and Jerry Judy. I think they're they've got the best chance to have a good game. DJ Moore has just not been utilized by the Panthers that much. Antonio Brown, we don't know how he's going to be utilized by the Bucks. And so Jerry Jeudy, I know that he's going to be the number one wide receiver target for Drew Lock, and I know that DJ Chark, he's going up against the third and fourth string cornerbacks for the Packers and was targeted ad nauseum by Jake Luton his first time out. Next question, Fulgham, Chark, Antonio Brown, pick 2. Chark and Fulgham. Same thing with Chark. Fulgham talked about he's still going to be the number one option for the Eagles there, even with some guys coming back. And he's got a great game against the Giants to go up against there. And next question, Wentz or Bridgewater? Give me your thoughts on that one, Towns.
I'm going with Wentz. I like Wentz against the Giants today. I think that Wentz has a good fantasy game today. I don't think that Teddy Bridgewater has too great of a game today against this Bucs team.
Okay, last one, Edmunds or Sanders? Gotta go Miles Sanders. I think Chase Edmunds is the better back to pick from Arizona, but I think in the end, Sanders is going to have a bigger impact for the Eagles than Edmunds does for the Cardinals. Okay, that's gonna be the last question. Okay, American man, start Darnell Mooney. I don't like Dolphins running backs. Just start Darnell Mooney. He'll have a better chance about catching a pass as long as Foles doesn't overthrow him. And that's going to be it. We're a little past time. There's less than an hour before kickoff, and Week 10 will kind of officially start. I guess it started on Thursday, but it will really start here in just less than an hour. I hope everyone has a good time. I hope everyone who asked questions today wins their fantasy matchup this week. Tones, I hope you have a good time watching the Bucs hopefully come back and beat up on the Panthers, kind of take out some frustration against them. And I will have to start thinking how the Chargers are going to lose this week. So thank you very much for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week.